Hi there, I'm Chris Aos.
And I'm Aos, and this is the Aos-to-Aos podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back. We are talking today about basically podcasting, which is I wouldn't say it's our main hustle, but it's one of our side hustles, and we're pretty passionate about it. We started doing this podcast, how long ago was it? Probably last year around October?
October, is when we started to really getting serious about it.
Yeah, so we've been doing it for quite some time. We've learned a little bit more. We've implemented some of our, things that we learned. We're still working towards it, but we kind of wanted to talk about some of the things that we've learned, some of the things that you can do if you want to start a podcast or even just a YouTube channel. Some of these things would even translate into that a little bit.
Absolutely.
So starting off, we have like a few things that we learned were, the quality of the video and things like that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Or?
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting one as we got into it, you don't realize, we have our webcams on our laptops and you don't realize how low quality they actually are. When you're on YouTube, a lot of times you don't put a lot of thought into how good of equipment these people have, to make the picture look good and to give good, video quality, the proper lighting, all those kind of things. You don't really think about how important that stuff is. But so when we first started podcasting, we kind of just went with the bare minimum, and we figured, we'll just make it work with whatever we have. And I think that's one of the things that as we've progressed that we've learned how important that is.
Right. Things like sound quality, video quality, it all matters because, it's kind of hard to listen and look at people who are talking. They might have some great information, but, if their, video quality is down, audio quality is down, the message is going to just get lost in translation, basically. And that'll affect your end product. So you want to kind of make sure that you're getting better quality things. And it doesn't actually cost that much to get better quality equipment. If you save a little bit of money, you might get a camera for, I think I don't know how much the one that we're using right now is, but the one that I got was about $64. And so that was... And it was a really good camera, and I was able to have better quality video when I was doing my podcasts, rather than just using the one on my laptop that isn't that good. And you just bought this microphone, and it is better than the last one.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize. The sound quality. If you go and you watch a video and you can, have a hard time hearing them, you're going to lose interest pretty quick.
Right.
If you have a hard time following the conversation, that's what you're there for. You're there to hear what the person has to say. And if you can't hear what they're saying, there's no use for you to finish watching the video or listen to the podcast. So that would probably be my one biggest recommendation for anyone, is to make sure that you have a good microphone.
Yeah.
Something that people can hear you with. This microphone that we're using here is actually called the Samson G-Track Pro, and we just upgraded to this for this podcast here. Before we had a Blue Ice Snowball, it was called,
right.
And it did the trick. But it was one of the things that was mentioned to us a few times, is that the sound quality just wasn't there.
Right.
So by upgrading to this one, it's got a lot more features. It actually has different features for where the sound it picks up. For a podcast or for doing an interview, it's got different settings so that you're getting optimal sound for those different situations. There's also settings so that you can plug instruments into it, and there's a gain on it so that you can, if the sound isn't coming through right, you can turn up the gain and make sure that you're getting the proper sound going through to your podcast. So yeah, it's definitely something you need to do your research into. Now, you don't need to go out and spend a ton of money on this stuff either. Right. You can go on to Amazon and you can buy a microphone for $500. You can go on there and buy like a Rode Professional or something like that. And it's going to give you great sound quality, but it depends on what you're looking at. If you're going to use it for other stuff, or if you just have the money and you just want to spend the money on the best equipment, that's great. But for someone who's just starting out and just starting to find what works for them. You can go out and you can buy a blue ice snowball for $60. This one's a little bit of an upgrade. This one was $130. So, it's kind of up into that little bit of a next price bracket. But if you look back at our past podcasts, you're going to see how good the sound quality is compared to those. Now, eventually I would like to, get up to a studio mic, but, for now, this actually works quite well.
Right. One thing I wanted to clear up real quick. When you said Samson, it's not Samsung, it's Samson. It kind of sounded like Samsung, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it is Samson. So, like, I don't know who, Samson. It's like the name, you know what I mean? Not Samsung. I just wanted to clear that up real quick.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. I guess I talk a little quick sometimes, so I'm glad that you clarified that.
Well, it's kind of hard even when I'm clarifying to say it not sound like Samsung, so yeah. But another thing I wanted to mention was one thing that we recently started implementing was better thumbnails, more high-quality thumbnails, because that will drive traffic to your video as well. You agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. As you're scrolling through, especially on your phone, when you're scrolling through YouTube looking for a video to watch, or when, a preview comes up or suggested video, if it looks like, a couple guys just sitting in their kitchen doing a video and it doesn't look that interesting. I know, we're all so visually stimulated. That's why when we go to the store, the signs are so big and sale price, and that's why the flyers in the newspaper look so fancy, and they put those dancing things in front of the car lots because they're trying to get our attention. And you're gonna have to do the same thing with your thumbnails. You want them to catch somebody's eye. You don't want them to be super flashy.
Right.
I guess it depends what you're doing. There's a lot of YouTubers out there like PewDiePie and Unspeakable and some of these guys that are just extreme. The Mr. Beast and stuff. They want you to think that they're off the wall and next level, because that's their brand, right? So, but for someone just starting off podcasting, you want to catch their eye, but you don't want to. You also want to convey what your podcast is about. So for us, we're talking about current events, we're talking about finances, things like that. So we want to show, a little bit of professionalism in our thumbnails.
Right.
But we also want to catch your attention. So, but at the same time, find what works for you. We're still kind of finding what works for us. Maybe extreme is what's going to work for us. Maybe that's what's going to get us to the next level in our podcast. But you also have to be comfortable with it too. You don't want to represent something and then have somebody open your video and it's two guys sitting there talking.
Right, yeah, for sure. I think a good way to describe it is it's curb appeal for your videos. So like if you were driving down a nice neighborhood and like you said, extreme videos, if you saw like a casino looking house and there was a bunch of normal houses, you probably wouldn't click on that because that's a little weird. That's not for you. But if it kind of fit into whatever you're trying to convey as like professional in this sense, that might be better. So like it's your curb appeal for your videos and for your personal brand and your channel, basically. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Another thing that you put in your notes here, let me look at that, are equipment musts. So one thing that we have that we didn't mention is a ring light that we have. And so that's better for the lighting and the microphone, of course. What are some other things that you think are musts? Like you said, like the ring light, we'll start with that. Yeah. That's a must because the lighting is so important, right?
It all depends on what you're trying to do. If you're vlogging or, just doing, maybe you're doing a lot of hiking and you want to take someone along and, you might just need a GoPro. Or else you might just need your phone. iPhones nowadays are...
you said vlogging, I'm sorry. I don't know. It's vlogging.
Okay,
you
sorry.
Said vlogging.
Oh, yeah, okay, old guy here.
Yeah.
Anyway, our iPhones nowadays, I have an iPhone XR, and, that's what we take the pictures for our thumbnails on. And, the video quality on that thing is excellent.
Right.
When we got into this, I guess it was an option, but we kind of... I don't know. I felt a little bit more comfortable having a separate camera for it. Being able to plug into the laptop where we're going to do our editing and things like that. So I guess that for me was more of a comfort thing. But nowadays, phones are pretty much all you need.
Right.
We also have some friends that do some YouTubing, and they use there's Canon cameras, digital SLRs, a little bit lower quality. You can get some that aren't SLR. They've got great sound built right into them. You can also get add-on microphones for them. So, I guess really, I I guess it comes down to needs and wants,
Right.
right? What do you actually need to be a podcaster? Depends what kind of image you're trying to put across. You can do it all on your phone. You know, if it's going to be a casual thing, I think with one person doing it on your phone, you could do that easily.
Right.
I think it gets a little harder with two people because of positioning and, you know, the smaller camera, things like that. Also sound. You know, when you have your phone set up where our camera is, you're not going to get as good a quality phone. With having a microphone like this, we're able to bring that microphone closer to us, still have the wider picture so that it can catch us both in, but still maintain a good sound quality. So what do you need? I think as a podcaster, I think the easiest way to do it would be with a laptop, with a camera. The camera we're using right now is a Logitech. We'll put some links down in the description with the names of our equipment. We won't put any affiliate links down there, but we will put some links down there so you can see what we use and you know, can kind of compare that to the video quality and the sound quality. But that camera that we're using right now, I think was about $90.
Right.
You know, you can get that on Amazon. Again, this here, we could have used a cheaper microphone. The original microphone we started with was only $60. The laptop, I mean, most people have a laptop, but you don't have to go crazy either. You can go to Walmart and get a laptop for a couple $100 that would get you started. Other than that, I mean, the ring light is awesome. I like the effect the ring light's given. We tried, you know, with natural light, which is highly recommended. That didn't really work out great. We tried with overhead light, you know, it just didn't seem to be right. Adding that ring light in, you know, really helps out with the color in the video, really makes it a lot sharper, a lot better quality. But we actually use a combination of the ring light and natural light to get our lighting in the show. So
right. And I mean, you could go bare minimum, and you don't even have to have video necessarily. If you're uploading to iTunes, SoundCloud, things like that, you could just go with sound. Yeah. And then you can just do that. You
could just use your phone for that.
Basically, yeah. So there's bare minimums that you can use in basically anything. Like if it's podcast, you know, you can just use sound. But if you're doing YouTube, you might want to have a video camera, and maybe you just want to use the microphone that's on the camera. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, if you're on a budget, you can go cheaper. And if you want to have a little higher quality later on, you can add more things like a better microphone. And like we talked about, we want to have 2 cameras one day. We want to have 2 microphones working, and we want to have a better set. But that's going to come probably later on. So right now we're just upgrading a little bit, and then later on we might be able to get that up to that point. Yeah.
And that's the thing too. I mean, like everyone thinks that their first video has to be perfect. You got to have perfect sound and perfect picture and all that kind of stuff. Well, the truth is that no matter how perfect you think that first video is, you're going to look back and it's going to be cringeworthy.
Yeah.
I mean, so, you know, the big thing I think with podcasting is, and I think that's a big deterrent for a lot of people too, they think they have to have all the right equipment to start, so they never start.
Right.
So, you know, even if you don't have the right equipment, even if you're doing it on your phone and doing it like this and your sound quality isn't that great, you know, you do your first couple of videos, you get some feedback from, you know, people, family and friends, because no one else is going to be watching your videos.
Yeah. It's true.
And then you move on from there. You know, then you say, oh, our sound sucks. Let's look at doing this, you know, and then you upgrade that. And our lighting, you know, we really need to improve that. You know, like I was looking back at some of our past videos, and with the natural light, I mean, it looked horrible. I mean, it was so
sounded
dark.
Probably bad too.
Yeah, that wasn't really the first thought of mine. It was more the lighting to me that, you know, I looked at and I'm like, yeah, that looks, you know, like someone recorded on a phone or something like that in a half dark apartment, which is what we actually did. So,
and I mean, that's exactly what we did, and I think we learned a little bit more now. But even in the future, like when we get to the point that we want to be, you know what I mean? Looking back on this specific video, we might even look back and be like, gosh, we might have to do a part 2 to this a couple years down the road, just being like, oh gosh, you know, maybe even react to this and say, this is what we did wrong, this is what we did wrong, you know, because we're constantly learning. And that's really the key to success in general, is constantly learning from your mistakes and moving forward. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to get anywhere, of course. You know what I mean? So yeah, the next thing that we were kind of bad at too is we didn't get the conversation rolling. We're better at that now. We always have notes now. But before we kind of just riffed it and we went off. And that ended up being like we would pause all the time. There would be areas where we wouldn't talk or whatever. We'd be like, hey, what do you want to talk about next? You know what I mean? So we'd be chatting back and forth a little bit. Then we'd be like, all right, what do we do now? So like we're better now because we always have notes. But and that's another tip. You want to have notes and you want to know what you're going to be talking about, because or else you're going to be doing a lot of editing. And that's another thing too, is editing softwares, things like that. You can get free editing softwares, or pay a little bit more for a premium one. The one we use is called Movavi. And that's actually pretty good. It does cost, I think, how much does it cost? Like
I think it's about $50 for a basic version.
$50 for the basic version. You can get like an upgraded version, and it's very easy to use if you want to spend a little bit of money. Or if not, you can use like what's another one, like I believe it's called.
Well, Apple has
Apple Movie.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. So that's a great software as well, and that's free on most people's phones. I think Google on Android has a couple options as well. If not, go into the App Store and you can generally find something that you can use for free. Microsoft on the laptops has some video editing software as well, so it's not, you don't have to spend a lot of money on it. But again, that's one of those things where to improve your video quality, you're going to probably want to upgrade eventually to like a professional or semi-professional video editing software. And when I say professional, I don't mean it's got to be like a $500 package.
Right.
A $50 package works just fine, does all the things you need to do. As you kind of evolve in your podcast and evolve in your video taking and stuff like that, then you're going to see things that you want to add on and changes you want to make, and then you can actually upgrade your software from there. And hopefully at that point you're profitable, right? You're starting to make a little bit of money. You're starting to get a bit of a decent viewership. So doesn't have as much impact on you. But just real quick, I just wanted to go back to the notes thing real quick. You said, like it helps in the quality of the video. I think that is super important. One of the things that, with editing, yeah, you can edit out the quiet spots, but people see that. They know you edit it. And it also takes away some of the momentum in the video. And as you progress in your podcast and you're taking, you have notes and you're able to keep the conversation flowing, I think that adds so much value to it. I mean, it makes it more interesting. People want to listen to it. They're involved in a conversation, not just like an instructional video.
Right.
So yeah, it is so important to take the notes. And I mean, you could probably even look back at some of our podcasts, and if you watch through them, you can tell which ones that we just did on the fly, and which ones we had notes to. The ones that we had notes to has a much better flow to it, much better content to it. The ones that we just went on the fly, that you hear a lot of ums and uhs and I guesses, that's just how it goes.
And kind of like going back over what you said, because you want to make sure you establish that. But if you had it in your notes, you would have known that you established that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it is really important to know where you've been, where you're going to go with the subject, and having a good mapped out plan. It's just like anything else. Like you're not going to get wealthy unless you have a plan of action. You know what I mean? And you're not going to have a good video if you don't have a plan of action for that video. It doesn't have to be a script, but it can be like a couple points you want to talk about, and that might take you to one point, but you have to go. But as soon as you go to that point, go back. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things you learn. But if you start out, you're gonna have a better quality video, and you'll be that much more ahead. Whereas if you just riff it the whole time, you're probably gonna have a lower quality of a video to start with, or podcast to start with, I guess you could say.
Yeah. In
this situation, yeah.
Video editing software. You touched on that as well.
Yep.
And when we first started out, I was just using free software, and I thought, okay, this will do all right. But I found out pretty quickly that, paying a little bit of money for something was actually well worth it. There's so many different, functions and features. When you're starting out, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter, but a lot of the free softwares actually either have a watermark on them, or I'll say, they want to be mentioned in your podcast, or not in the actual content, but in your description, things like that. So there are some requirements like that to keep in mind. But I mean, that is such a huge, I think it made a huge improvement in their video quality, being able to use something that actually was easy to use. Movavi, I mean, I used it once and I fell in love with it. I'm probably at a point now where I would like to get into something a little bit more involved, something that had a few more features. But for what we do, it's actually perfect. And I think for anyone out there, I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah. And, I don't know about anybody else's podcast. It might just be a hobby, but we are trying to make it more of a business. So, and it's just like any other business. It's quality product for consumers to consume, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if you want to put your best quality out there, if it's going to be representing your brand and your business. So that's one thing to think about too, is you want to have the best quality in every situation. And from an editing software standpoint, you're going to have more, a cleaner video, maybe more features, like you can add in, video, different kinds of videos, like stock videos, stock photos. You can add in voiceovers. You can add in titles and descriptions and things like that. So you want to really, and if it's quality stuff and it's not, made off of free software, you're going to have a better quality, and that's better for your business and for your audience to consume. Mm-hmm. So and
it's also like when you're uploading your videos, Movavi has a feature where you can upload it right from your computer, right to YouTube. So it's kind of nice for time management as well. So you're not making those extra steps, having to save it to your computer and then uploading it from YouTube. Mm-hmm. You're uploading the actual product that you just made to YouTube. So, it kind of takes out some steps there. So I like that feature about it. There's a lot of good features. The other thing that is important is picture editing software, like all of our thumbnails. You can do those on free software. We actually pay for a service called PicMonkey. Right. It's actually pretty reasonable. I think it costs $7 or $8 a month, and it is great. So you can take your pictures, upload them to PicMonkey. PicMonkey has a lot of different templates. So you put it on the template for your thumbnail, for your YouTube thumbnail, and it knows exactly what you're trying to build. Mm-hmm. So it kind of optimizes everything for your thumbnails. They also have things like for your background art, for Instagram art. I mean, every kind of social media, Facebook, et cetera, they have all the templates up there to make your job so much easier. You can do all that stuff from scratch, but it's so much easier when you can actually have that stuff, partially made for you. You have a starting point to work from. It knows optimal size. So, when you build it, I think the upload limit for a thumbnail to YouTube is 2 megabytes. Mm-hmm. So when you build, you put your picture up there, it adjusts the size and the quality so that it's going to fit within the parameters for YouTube. So you don't have to sit there and you build this perfect thumbnail and you go to upload and it says, YouTube says it's too big. Right. So, that's one of the good advantages about that kind of software. Plus, they've got a lot of stock photos. They have a lot of ideas up there. There's a lot of instructional videos. When you get to a point where, you want to start adding more quality to your videos and stuff, those custom thumbnails, that you can make on PicMonkey are awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's another thing, too, is like you said PicMonkey, you made a logo for your other podcast, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, with that. And that was pretty easy as well?
Oh, absolutely.
And so you can make logos and things like that with PicMonkey. Mm-hmm. For, I guess this is not related, but like for businesses and things like that, maybe they can do logos and stuff. Is that free? Not the service, but...
I think there are some services with PicMonkey that are free. I actually opted to do the subscription because there were so many more features with it, so much you have access to more, like all the templates and things like that. You can go up there and you can edit stuff on PicMonkey, but only a certain amount of quality. So, okay. And I think some of them, if you don't pay for it, you have to have their watermark on it. So. Oh,
okay, I got you. All right. So did you want to quickly talk about your other podcast? Talk about what it's about and where they can find it?
Well, heck, sure. I'll put in a quick plug for it. The other podcast, it's called Midlife Crisis Podcast. And what it's about is just, getting to my age. It's some of the stuff we talk about here, but it's age specific to the people in my age group, 45 to 50, that are, at a point in life where they just realize that they're not ready.
Right.
That, we spend our earlier part of our life, spending money and buying things we can't afford. Well, all of a sudden, we get to 45 or 50 and we are starting to think about retirement and realizing how far behind we are. So that's kind of what the whole premise behind that is. And we're going to talk about everything from investing and personal budgeting and debt and credit and, all those things in between. And, just kind of sit there and talk about, that kind of stuff. So,
cool.
Yeah, we'll make sure to put a link down in the description if you guys want to check that out.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
So I'll just touch real quick. Another subject that we kind of skimmed over was recording software. We talked about editing software and how we do our thumbnails and stuff, but recording software, it's one of those things that I haven't really looked a lot into. I mean, this whole time we've been just recording off of the laptops, off of Windows camera.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure there is, software out there for recording that's going to do a lot better job. I know that you can actually record through Movavi as well. So maybe next podcast or something like that, we can actually record through Movavi and see if there's a difference in quality. But for now, we've just been using the laptop camera.
Yeah, and it's been working so far.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know actually too much about if the quality would go up or down based on if we recorded on Movavi or whatever. I do know that last time, like when I was doing my own podcast, that I no longer do, but when I was doing my own podcast, I recorded on Movavi, and it actually shut off a couple times. The recording for some reason. I don't know why, but it actually shut off a couple times. So I'll have to research that, see if like there's something that would make it smoother. Maybe I think it'd be really cool if we could find something. If this doesn't exist, somebody can run with it and make it their own business. But something that like finds the low points and times where we have like big pauses and things like that, and flags them. And then you could immediately, take those out or go view them and see if you want to take them out. Things like that. That would be pretty cool if we could find something like that. And if it doesn't exist, somebody can make that a business one day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's something that I have to look into too. I guess up to this point, I've never felt a need to look into different, recording software because I mean, when we record a video on the laptop, our words match our lips, and that's really all that really matters. The video quality is pretty good. We've done some things with the ring light to improve the lighting and stuff. And the camera on the laptop, that seems to do everything we need to do. So I guess it's, without actually looking into it, I guess I'm pretty happy with what we have.
Yeah.
Maybe once I start looking into it, it'll be a little bit different. Now, I guess that's kind of something that we can touch on as well as needs versus wants. I mean, we kind of talked about, what the broke podcaster needs to get started. Just the basics, the microphone, the camera or the webcam and the laptop, pretty simple things to work with. Now we can actually get into, talking about what we actually want.
Right.
This new microphone was something that I wanted, because it's got the different options on it for recording and the patterns and things like that. It's got the gain on it so that we can improve the sound quality so that people don't have to turn up their devices to hear us. But you can actually go from this point and you can go a step higher and you can actually get into actual studio equipment.
Right.
You can get into sound mixing boards and things like that, different style microphones. You can get into stands that have vibration protection on them and all that kind of stuff. Those I'd eventually like to get to that point. Looking at a guy like Joe Rogan when he's sitting there in his chair, nice comfortable chair. I'd like one of those
That'd
too.
be nice, yeah.
So he's sitting there in his nice comfortable chair and he's got his headphones on and he's got his mic coming down from the top. I mean, he looks like a podcaster.
Right.
I mean, that's when I think in my head, what's a podcaster? I think Joe Rogan.
Right.
So, there's a whole bunch of those things that I eventually would want, but do I need them? No.
Right.
That's a point that we'll eventually get to. Camera equipment as well. I mean, there's camera equipment out there that, you have a zoom on it so we can actually zoom in. We can do a lot of different stuff. We can actually have sound recorded right to the camera itself.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things that I eventually want. Maybe some softer lighting, some lights around us. There's there's so many different things you can do to get your video quality up.
But we've met our needs, which are sound, video, and something to put it all together with. And now we can kind of focus on our wants. Like when we want eventually a studio, that's a want, not a need. You don't need a studio to start, but it's a want. Same thing with, like you were saying, the equipment. It's a want, not a need, and we can move on to that later. But first, we got to meet our needs before we can meet our wants. So if you want to have, a podcast that's video, audio, and you just don't have a camera yet, you can start with video and then move on to audio, but don't get a nicer mic before you do that, because you want to have it as a audio, and that's kind of important to your product. Is the video. I messed up a little bit there, but it's important to your video, especially if you were like vlogging. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, cool.
Well, I guess one of the things too, over the next couple of months here, we're actually going to be transitioning into a little bit of a different format.
Yeah.
You'll be going away to university,
right?
So we'll be, couple hours apart at all times, a few hours apart. So we're actually going to be going into a different format where we're actually going to be doing almost like an interview format each time. Maybe split screen. That's something that we're just working out the details on right now, but it's going to mean more equipment. It's also going to mean, communicating over the internet. So that's going to probably present a few challenges, but it's going to be kind of interesting now that we've gotten this part of it down, and the recording and all this kind of stuff down, being side by side. It's going to be kind of an interesting transition to be going to the communicating over the internet and doing it, two different recordings.
Right, yeah.
So
we're going to be starting almost from day one. It is, in a way, like we're probably going to have separate lighting, make sure the quality is the same on both sides, even though we're going to be a couple hours apart. That's going to be kind of I wouldn't say an issue, because we'll figure it out, but it's going to be kind of a challenge to work out the sound, the audio, the editing. I think that the scheduling is going to be a bit easier, but making sure that the two videos are working at the same rate, so we don't have long pauses in between, and that's going to be kind of a challenge. But I'm actually excited to kind of figure out how to do that, and I think we're going to be a little bit better because of it. That way, when we come together, maybe we have a better quality video, better quality podcast after that. So yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting to see.
It will be. And if there's anyone out there that has some suggestions that maybe is using that format already to kind of give us some ideas, some good software to use, we'd appreciate any of the help you could give us.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, guys. That'll about do it for today. Thanks for watching.
Go ahead and leave a comment down below if you want us to talk about anything on a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the podcast, and leave a like before you leave.
And make sure to hit that bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Have a good day.